I've always had the interest, and when I first started at my undergrad, I studied a bunch of things. I was one of these constantly changing your majors people, and I changed between applied physics is where I started, and then I went to international studies, but then somehow transitioned to anthropology and archaeology. But I always kept the interest up in international studies, so I kind of went from wanting to study current cultures and what was going on to studying past cultures and what was going on there. And that the constant urge to learn more about all societies kept me interested in forecasting, in what was going on in different countries. And as I said, I was switching all the time. I went to quite a few different universities in quite a few different countries. I was at school in, let's start at the beginning, Utah, followed by Vermont, and then Norway, then back to Utah, and I finished my doctorate in Scotland, where I was there for 7 years, and then I went to Ireland for 10 years. So, constantly moving in different cultures, different societies, different political systems, it was always something of great interest to me. In what I do for my day job in maritime archaeology, it's a very similar thing. We take the outside view. We have very disparate information. We have maybe a few artifacts, maybe not even, maybe some historical sources, maybe someone stumbled upon something and just have rumors, historical studies, ethnographic studies, and we have to take all this information and try to piece it together to come up with a solution to or an explanation of what we're finding. And it's very similar in forecasting. I kind of approach it the same way, where I'll take very disparate information. I won't take the big, huge pictures that are thrust in your face. I'll kind of take outside views and use some of the same tools that I use at work. I'm a huge proponent of using GIS mapping of different issues to try to get, like, say it's a question that has a geographical perspective. I'll make my own GIS program and basically, put the model together that has all the contributory information from different press sources, different mapping where different roads are, communication routes, transportation routes. And it's the same kind of thing I would do in archaeology. I just apply it to the future in forecasting as opposed to applying it to the past. The first one was there's almost no, but I'd say nothing is certain. That's not entirely true. I'm sure there's certain things that are certain. But for the most part, nothing is certain. The other thing was don't trust one source of information, but then don't discard all sources just because you think it's not valid. Whenever you're reading a source of information, if you have just one single source and he's the only one saying it, sometimes I wouldn't dismiss it, but I would not trust it. I'd look for something that would, contribute to it or just help verify it. And that can even be one of these sources where, you see it on the internet and you think, wow, that's really dubious. These guys are, pretty crazy. But somewhere in there, if you read through the whole thing, there might be one sentence which collaborates what's going on in that other source. That was a single source. And I was like, okay, now I've got two independent sources. And you can start to build on that. So one of the things I would always say is don't rely on the one, but don't discard sources just because you may think they're a bit out there. And there are quite a few sources that are out there. Trust yourself, but doubt yourself as well. And always be prepared to be devil's advocate to yourself. If you're working within a team, that's even better because most forecasters do not have a problem being devil's advocate, or what we call red teaming. And keep an open mind. Don't go into something thinking you know exactly what's going on. It never seems to work out that way. Just when you think you know exactly what's going on, it changes. And that would be the main thing, is just, be open to change. In Dr. Tetlock's book, he mentions that we're in perpetual beta. That is a great way of thinking of it, is always be willing to change and learn and just, go with it. A lot of people get really kind of stuck in the mud on certain ideas, and that's the quickest way to get it wrong. Like I said, I go back and forth between the different, venues of inquiry in archaeology and in forecasting. So there has been times where one of the things that forecasting told me is it's great if you have a model, but there can always be a better model. Always be a better model. You might have one that's showing you exactly what you want, but if you tweak it a little bit or you say you find a new data set, can always be that little bit better. And I've started to apply that to some shipwreck hunts that I've been doing, where we have a model on how to locate shipwrecks in areas of high probability, but it can always be better. So I've actually started tweaking some of the models that I use at work to add additional data sets, maybe pulling things from multidisciplinary studies from geomorphology, marine geomorphology, riverbed hydrological processes, going into shipwreck site formation, and just basically, constantly tweaking the models. There's something. The other thing that I've tried to do as much as I can is I have 2 young sons who I'm trying to teach them how to approach different issues. Not so much to get them in trouble at school for questioning the teacher all the time, which is very possible, but when they answer a question, say, well, is that it? I spoke to my son about a tree growing in a field, and I said, well, how much do you think that tree is going to grow next year? And he just said, oh, well, this. I said, why'd you say that? He's like, well, because it just looks like, well, did you think about how much is it going to rain next year? How much fertilizer is the farmer going to put in that field where that tree's in the middle? How often is he going to plow it? There's so many issues that surround one issue that when you hear one question, there's usually 20, 30, however many more questions that can help you answer that question. So I've been trying to push it on them to kind of think that way.